Vaseehar Hassan Abdul Razak, you're chairman of Unicorn International Islamic Bank in Malaysia. Malaysia recently had an Islamic banking conference. Malaysia is heavily promoting Islamic banking at the moment. You're saying basically it's an alternative to the sort of investment banking structure that we've seen so far.
Islamic banks will never finance any paper trading activities or debts. We will only be participant in a specific tangible asset development, whether it's highways or power projects or transportation or construction, housing. There must be a tangible activity. Even agriculture, there must be a tangible activity to be funded. And the Islamic banks will not just allow you the money and then let you do what you want with the money, unlike conventional banks, where if you are a credit-worthy borrower, you may be given 100 or 200 million or even $1 billion, and it's up to you to go and use the money. And most of these high-quality institutions, sometimes they issue credit papers or rated papers and use those monies to whatever they think is fit. And if those activities fail, the conventional banks have no recourse to these assets because these assets have been misused or have not been backed by tangible activities. Whereas in the Islamic bank, no Islamic bank would allow you just money and say you can go and do whatever you want. They will follow you through what exactly you want to do and be your partner, holding your hands from day one until the project is completed, and then make sure that it is properly completed and the cash flows are generated according to what they have been projected, and then they share an equitable proportion of the profit.
So in essence, we wouldn't have seen any of the problems that we're having today in the West with regards to derivatives or some of the sort of rocket science instruments that have been used.
Some of the rocket science instruments that are being used are really financial engineering created by scientists who thought that they can measure risk and then have an accurate science of how much these derivatives can be used in the financial world. But Islamic banks, you can't have derivatives or financial papers without necessary backing of the asset, which goes to say that the fundamental of creation of credit in conventional banking is you create up to 8 times, 12 times your capital. In Islamic banks, strictly we cannot gear up to that level. You take the deposits from the depositors and then you fund a specific activity.
So you're never really going to see the sort of growth that Western institutions...
You will not see the kind of growth that the Western institutions see because it is easier to create credit over 20 times or 30 times. And one of the key factors why Lehman Brothers failed, for example, is they were geared up almost 50 to 60 times their capital. And therefore, the financial risk to the bank as well as to the depositors was very huge. You won't see that kind of activity in the Islamic bank. That is why only the real economy will be funded by Islamic assets.
And you were saying in the conference, in the summit, that Lehman Brothers had to fail, and essentially because of the asset quality.
Yes.
Or lack of it.
Yeah, lack of it. You see, they had geared themselves, they create one level of paper. For example, there is a mortgage-backed securities, and that is okay. The first level of mortgage-backed securities is fine when you originate and you sell because it's backed by the mortgage, the physical asset of this property. But when those papers, then they create a secondary level and a third level and a fourth level, there is no underlying asset to support those papers. And bulk of, I think of Lehman's assets were of that quality which had no access to the real asset underlying 3 or 4 levels below. And that is why they did not have credible assets which the government could say, okay, we will take over and salvage this bank.
A number of Western institutions have become interested in Islamic banking, such as HSBC. We're in a period in which there are going to be financial reforms, new regulations, but it's unlikely that there'll be any wholesale change or move towards the principles of Islamic banking. I mean, that would be unlikely.
Yeah, definitely it will be unlikely, but we certainly see a shift in all the major financial institutions, including HSBC, Citigroup, the old ABN AMRO now, RBS, and Deutsche Bank. All of them have been active in the Middle East. In fact, our group in the Middle East have worked with some of these banks as well on a joint basis to develop some products and some sukuk, or the Islamic bonds. And there is definitive interest in the Islamic banking from Europe, from UK, and also several parts of Asia, including Singapore. Singapore has created, as you may know, Islamic Bank of Asia, which is a subsidiary of DBS Group.
And it was also interesting, you were saying that South Korea is another country which
South Korea, Hong Kong, and Japan are talking to regulators in Malaysia and in the Middle East to see what are the impediments to setting up Islamic banking, and how their rules and regulations could be changed to facilitate Islamic banking. I am personally involved with one South Korean institution to introduce the first Islamic sukuk in South Korea.
So we're seeing this sort of embryonic stages of interest in Islamic banking, but we're not likely to see it carried out wholesale.
No, it will start slowly, and hopefully will steadily increase. Even in Malaysia, which started Islamic banking in the early 80s, we only have now about 12% of the total banking assets under Islamic finance. And we are aspiring to increase it to 20% in the next 2 to 3 years. So it will take a long time before we can see a major thrust in Islamic banking. But it's a good start now. At least people are beginning to learn Islamic banking. And the crisis has given a great opportunity to develop Islamic banking. But my greatest disappointment with the Islamic banks, especially the GCC banks, some of the big banks have failed to take advantage of this crisis to come and promote Islamic banking and provide this window, to take opportunity of this window offered to go and do major funding under Islamic principles. They also behave as if they have been hit and they are keeping quiet and not proactively promoting the bank.
The GCC is, by the way, the Gulf Cooperation Council and the Gulf states. But they presumably are having their own sets of problems, given the building boom that we're seeing in places like Dubai.
Yeah, Dubai is one of the, of course, isolated areas where there could be some issues. But countries like Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia have still very solid economies, and they're very liquid, given the huge increase in prices of oil over the last couple of months, although they've tapered down, but still it's a very huge surplus for them. So these monies could be channeled, if there is willpower from the GCC, to effective economic banking, and then to show the world that this is the way to move forward. That I do not see coming as yet from the institutions.
Vaseehar Hassan Abdul Razak, Chairman of Unicorn International Islamic Bank, Malaysia. Thanks for joining us on INSEAD Knowledge.
Thank you.